In a frozen hallway, two of the world's most feared leaders shook hands in secret. What they signed in silence could ignite a global firestorm. Africa is rising, armed and unafraid, but a betrayal from within threatens to tear it all apart. This is the untold story of a deal that could reshape the world or destroy it. A secret handshake in a cold hallway. Two leaders the world fears, one from Africa, one from Asia. What they signed in silence could change the world forever. It began quietly, like a whisper behind iron doors. No media, no crowds, no applause. In a dark room, lit only by a single bulb, President Ibrahim Traoré sat across from a man few Africans had ever seen in person, the leader of North Korea. The place was not in Pyongyang, not in Ouagadougou. It was in a hidden military base somewhere between Russia and the Chinese border, a meeting arranged through Russian intermediaries, a meeting the West never saw coming. Traoré wore his green uniform and a simple red beret. He was not there to beg. He was there with a mission to protect his people, his country, and the dream of a sovereign Africa. The North Korean leader said nothing at first, only stared. Then he opened a small steel case. Inside, blueprints, missiles, rocket systems, cyber warfare tech, things that even some Western nations didn't have yet. "We give these enemies of the empire," the North Korean translator said. "But we choose only those who dare to stand." Traoré looked at the documents with calm eyes. He knew what this meant. It meant protection from invasion. It meant defense against foreign spies, drones, coups. But it also meant risk. What do you want in return? Traoré asked plainly. The North Korean leader smiled slightly. "Not money, not gold. We want what your soil hides. Rare earth metals, uranium, and lithium." Traoré nodded. He already knew. Burkina Faso's underground wealth had always attracted silent thieves. But this time, the trade would not be hidden, at least not from him. He stood, reached into a jacket, pulled out a folder marked Akafina Protocol, an internal Burkinabe plan for long-term self-defense and anti-imperialist cooperation. He placed it on the table. "We agree," he said, "but no colonial strings, no secret control. We trade as equals or not all." The translator repeated the words. The North Korean leader slowly extended his hand. And in that small moment, in the cold, secret air of a forgotten place, the two men shook hands. The deal was done. No one in Burkina Faso knew. Not yet. Not the ministers, not the generals, not even the people closest to the captain. But soon, when the first crate landed, when the first missile system was quietly assembled in the Sahel, the world would feel something strange. Africa was no longer begging for help. Africa was arming itself. And that would shake the earth. The plane touched down in the dead of night. No lights, no flags, no ceremony. It was not a government jet, but a modified cargo aircraft painted in dull gray, marked only with a strange serial number. On board were crates wrapped in heavy steel, each stamped with red Korean symbols. No one was allowed to open them except a special unit personally approved by Ibrahim Traoré himself. At Ouagadougou Military Air Base, the delivery was received by a group of silent men in dark uniforms. No media, no photos, just quiet tension and disciplined eyes. Among the crates were missile parts, anti-drone jammers, encrypted communication systems, and something else, a device no Burkinabe officer had ever seen before. They called it the black box. It had no label, just a note. "Do not activate until instructed. Only the president holds the code." The next morning, while the city moved as normal, markets opening, children going to school deep underground, in a secret war room, Traoré met with 5 of his most trusted commanders. The room was soundproof, built during the French colonial era, but never used until now. He placed his hand on the table. "What you're about to see," he said, "does not leave this room." The officers nodded. One of them was General Babayara, a man who fought rebels for 20 years in the north. He had seen death, betrayal, even sabotage from within. But what he was about to hear shocked even him. Traoré opened a classified folder labeled Agreement 9K, BFA. "North Korea has given us access to defensive weapons the West refuses to sell us," he said. "In return, we give them controlled access to specific mineral zones, not ownership, not control. We are still sovereign. One of the commanders raised his eyebrows. Sir, this is risky. If the Americans or the French find out, they will. Traoré interrupted. Eventually, but by then it will be too late. Another officer leaned forward. Are we prepared for sanctions? Isolation? Traoré stared at him firmly. We were already isolated, sanctioned, lied to, spied on. We were dying slowly. Now, at least we will stand with a shield. Back at the airbase, engineers began unloading the technology. One device caused confusion, a mobile radar jammer system able to bring down enemy surveillance drones. Burkinabe technicians scanned it, trying to understand. A North Korean advisor, silent until now, finally spoke. This is not for defense, he said in broken French. This is for silence, so your enemies will speak in darkness. But inside the palace, something else was happening. A low-level official, young, well-dressed, educated in France, was watching everything. His name was Serge Dow, an assistant in the Ministry of Energy. He had seen the flight logs. He had seen the mineral contracts. And what he saw scared him, not because he feared war, but because he feared Africa waking up. That night, Serge sent an encrypted email, not to local media, not to Burkinabe authorities. He sent it to Paris. In a cafe in Marnes, a French intelligence officer opened the email, read it, and made a call. They've signed something, he whispered. We need to act before it's too late. The next move would not come from Ouagadougou. It would come from Europe. And the betrayal had already begun. 3 days later, a private jet landed quietly in Niamey, Niger. Inside were 3 foreign intelligence officers, 2 from France, 1 from the U.S., all carrying diplomatic passports. Their mission was simple: confirm the rumor, and if true, stop it before the African alliance grew too strong. They met inside a discreet safe house with Serge Dow, the Burkinabe official who had sent the leak. He looked nervous, sweating through his thin shirt, but he spoke fast. I saw the documents, not just signatures. The missiles are real. They've already landed, and the mineral trade is being processed through a ghost company based in Guinea. The French officer leaned forward. Can you get us copies? I already did, Serge said, sliding over a USB drive. But listen, if the people find out what Traoré is doing, they will call him a hero. You must act fast. The American smiled. We will. But what Serge didn't know was that he had just sold more than data. He had sold his country's chance to defend itself. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, President Traoré stood with a group of young soldiers in the desert outskirts. The wind was dry. The dust stung their eyes. In front of them was a small launching station, camouflaged, buried underground, and powered by new technology. One of the commanders said, "It's ready, just one test, and the whole region will know we are no longer begging." Traoré raised his hand. "No, not yet. Power used too early invites enemies. Let them wonder. Let them guess." He looked up at the sky. "Let silence be our sword." That same evening, back in Europe, a high-level meeting took place in Brussels. Representatives from NATO, EU intelligence, and private military contractors sat around a table. The screen in front of them showed a map of the Sahel zone, now marked with red alerts. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad. They're forming a bloc, a British officer said. If they gain missile capability, the Sahel is no longer ours. This is not just about Africa, added the American. This is about China, Russia, North Korea. It's a triangle now, and Traoré is standing right in the middle. A senior French diplomat leaned forward. We propose an operation, subtle, fast, a military-based accident or a diplomatic scandal. But the room fell silent when someone from the back said quietly, "What if we use the African Union? Turn the rest of Africa against him?" The room buzzed with approval. While plots grew in the West, in Burkina Faso, something unexpected happened. A shipment meant for the military never arrived. A convoy carrying advanced radar systems disappeared in the forest near Bobo del Lasso. The security report came to Traoré at midnight. Ambushed, the officer said, but not by rebels, by trained foreign fighters. 2 white men were killed in the firefight. No ID, no fingerprints. Traoré closed the file. He knew now. They found out, and they've started their move. But he didn't panic. He smiled just slightly and said, "Then it begins. Let's see if Africa will kneel or rise." But far away, Serge Dow celebrated in a hotel room in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. He believed he was safe. He believed he had done his duty to the civilized world, until there was a knock at the door. Two men entered, black suits, Russian accents, quiet. They showed no badges, just whispered one sentence. "You betrayed a revolution. That has a price." The screen went black, and Africa's silence grew louder. In the early morning mist, as villagers lit fires to cook breakfast and children walked barefoot to school, a message was sent from Ouagadougou to three cities, Bamako, Niamey, and N'Djamena. It was short, encrypted, but powerful. Phase 2 begins. Watch the skies. President Ibrahim Traoré sat at the war table with two generals and his new military tech advisor, a quiet man from North Korea known only as Mr. Jin. No one knew his real name. No one dared ask. Before them was a map of West Africa, marked with dots, U.S. and French bases, drone stations, air surveillance routes. But now new marks appeared, green triangles. These were Burkina Faso's new silent defense sites, hidden in forests, hills, and even abandoned mines. "Mr. President," Jin said calmly, "in 72 hours, you'll have full radar jamming across your borders. No foreign eye will see what you do." Traoré leaned back. That's when they'll panic. He was right. Across the continent, Western embassies were buzzing. Surveillance planes had picked up strange black zones over Burkina Faso and parts of Mali. Entire areas went dark. No signal, no heat trace, no drone return. In Washington, a Pentagon official shouted, "Someone's turned off the lights in the Sahel." In Paris, inside a military operations center, a general stared at a red screen. "This isn't rebel tech," he said. "This is military-grade, advanced North Korean fingerprints." Traoré has made a deal with the devil. "What do we do?" someone asked. He replied coldly, "Break the alliance. Find the weak link. One of those presidents must still answer to us." Meanwhile, back in Burkina Faso, something even bigger was happening. President Traoré had gathered 40 trusted elders, scientists, and youth leaders inside an old underground assembly hall, the same hall where Sankara once spoke about a united Africa. He stood before them and spoke plainly. "You have seen what they do when we stand. They assassinate our leaders, steal our gold, control our media. But now we are ready. We have the weapons, but more than that, we have the will." He raised a paper. "This is the Unity Defense Charter, signed by Mali, Niger, and Chad. They agree, if one of us is attacked, all of us will rise." The room broke into gasps. One old man stood and said, "You are walking the line between greatness and death, my son." Traoré looked at him and smiled. "Then let history decide." But far away, in the mountains of northern Côte d'Ivoire, a secret team was already on the move. Led by foreign special operatives posing as African rebels, they carried weapons, explosives, and French-made radios. Their mission: attack with Burkinabe missile sites, make it look like an accident, leak it to the international press, blame Traoré, turn the African Union against him. That night, while Traoré visited a village in the north to attend a local festival, an explosion shook the sky. One of the secret launch facilities had been hit. Flames rose. Soldiers rushed in. A small drone caught footage and sent it to a foreign server. The headline was already waiting. "Burkina Faso storing illegal missiles, Africa at risk." The next morning, Al Jazeera, BBC, and Le Monde all ran the same story. Western media united in one voice. But Traoré didn't speak. Not yet. He knew something the world didn't. The facility that was hit was fake. A decoy, a trap with cameras hidden inside. And what those cameras captured would shake every capital from Paris to Pretoria. 3 days after the explosion, the world buzzed with headlines. Missile site explosion in Burkina Faso. Traoré accused of dangerous military deal. Is the Sahel the new North Korea? Burkina Faso's secret weapons raised global concern. Western diplomats began pressuring the African Union to call an emergency session. Sanctions were whispered. Aid suspensions were prepared. France moved a naval unit closer to West Africa. America's AFRICOM sent out surveillance drones. But deep in Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré sat calmly in his command room with his intelligence team. He held a small remote in his hand, eyes fixed on a large screen. "Play the footage," he said. The screen flickered to life. It showed the night of the explosion, captured from multiple angles. 6 men in black. Not rebels, not Burkinabe, all light-skinned, all armed with high-tech gear. The footage showed one of them speaking French with Parisian accent. Another cursed in American English. The drone followed as they planted explosives, took photos, and transmitted false data. Then it showed their faces, clear, unmasked. "Release it," Traoré ordered. "Where, sir? On national TV?" "No," he smiled. "Send it to the people first." Within hours, African social media exploded. Millions watched the video. TikTok, Facebook, and Telegram were filled with one caption: "They lied again." African youths reposted it with hashtags like hashtag Africa will not kneel, hashtag Traoré told yous, hashtag Burkina exposed the truth. Even in South Africa, Senegal, Ghana, and DR Congo, influencers began calling out the international media for manipulating Africa's image again. The African Union's emergency meeting opened in Addis Ababa the next day. Burkina Faso's chair sat quietly while foreign influence delegates mumbled about destabilization and concerns. Suddenly, a Burkinabe representative stood up and walked to the center. "Before you speak a condemnation," she said, "watch this." The lights dimmed. The video played. Every face in the room changed. Some lowered their heads. Some gasped. One minister from Cameroon whispered, "They did this to Sankara." Now again. The meeting ended not in sanctions, but in silence. And then something unexpected happened. The president of South Sudan, a man known to avoid controversy, stood and raised his voice. "If Traoré is to be punished for defending his land, then punish us all, because from today, Africa will no longer apologize for survival." The room erupted. Applause, clenched fists, some ministers cried. It was no longer about Burkina Faso. It was about every country that had ever been humiliated, robbed, divided. Back in Paris, the French intelligence command was in panic. "The footage is real. Someone betrayed the op." "No, monsieur," one officer replied. Traoré never fell for it. He set us up. A silence followed. Then we moved to Plan B. Assassination? No, something worse. Let Africa destroy him itself. But as the storm brewed in the west, Ibrahim Traoré stood before a new gathering in Ouagadougou. Not generals, not foreign ambassadors, but mothers, teachers, miners, young people. He told them everything: the deal, the risks, the threats. And then he said, "If I fall, let it not be in silence. Let my blood water the soil that will grow a free Africa." They stood. They clapped. They cried. The nation wasn't just behind him now. They were ready to die beside him. But the final twist was still to come, and it would not arrive by plane or drone. It would arrive through someone he thought he could trust. Night fell over Ouagadougou like a heavy curtain. But in the palace, the light stayed on. The president's security had tripled. Every corridor had eyes. Every phone was checked. Ibrahim Traoré didn't sleep. Not because he was afraid, but because he was waiting. Earlier that day, intelligence reports had confirmed what he feared. There was a mole. Not just someone who leaked documents, but someone very close. Someone who had access to his daily meetings, his military files, even his food schedule. And that night, the mole was expected to act. At 2:23 a.m., in the silence of the presidential residence, a young officer named Colonel Smain, one of Traoré's former academy students, made his move. He entered the restricted area, wearing his full uniform, holding a sealed file folder. He was calm, too calm. Security let him through. After all, he was trusted, known by the guards, praised by Traoré himself. He walked through the inner courtyard, past the marble corridor, up to the president's door. He knocked once. "Enter," Traoré said. Smain entered, stood at attention, and handed over the folder. "Latest security update, sir." Traoré opened it, scanned the first page, blank. Second page, blank. Third page, Only one line. Forgive me. I was promised a new life in Geneva. Traoré looked up slowly. Smain was already reaching into his inner jacket. A cold metallic glint caught the light. A small, silent pistol, close range, professional. But before he could lift it, the chandelier flickered, and 3 red dots appeared on his chest. Traoré didn't blink. I knew it was you, he said softly. You were always too quiet after the missile meetings. Smain froze. His hand shook. They said you'd bring war. They said you were going to destroy Africa. And what did you say? Traoré asked. I said I didn't believe them, but they showed me money and fear. Traoré stood slowly, walked toward him. You had a choice. You could have built something with us. But now you are just a footnote in the book of betrayal. Smain dropped the gun. Don't kill me. Please. Traoré stepped aside. I won't. Let your shame live longer than your life. Guards rushed in. Smain was dragged out. The whole palace watched in silence. The next morning, the footage of the failed assassination leaked again, not to Western media, but to the African people. And this time, something broke. Not fear, not rage, but unity. Messages flooded the internet. They tried to kill Traoré again. Another Sankara moment stopped. We are all Ibrahim Traoré. Across the continent, protests turned into rallies. Flags of Burkina Faso were waved in Gabon, Congo, Ghana, Kenya, Algeria, even Madagascar. Music artists wrote songs. Elders told stories, and a new slogan appeared. We will defend our defenders. In North Korea, the agreement was renewed. But this time, it wasn't just about weapons. They offered cybersecurity, intelligence training, and satellite tech. In exchange, Burkina Faso would teach soil restoration, solar farming, and desert agriculture, things they had mastered through pain and perseverance. In the end, the world watched in confusion. They had tried war, lies, assassins, and shame, but Traoré survived them all because he had something no weapon could defeat, a people who believed again. And as Ibrahim Traoré stood on a dusty hilltop, looking at the sunset, a young boy approached him barefoot with a wooden toy tank. Are you afraid they'll come again? The boy asked. Traoré smiled. Let them come. Africa is not afraid anymore. The boy saluted with his toy. And in that moment, a revolution, silent, powerful, and unstoppable, marched on. Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories about justice and comeback victories that will restore your faith in standing up for what's right.